guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. Time for OJ. Time for the same questions over and over again. But every couple days they add new questions and they drop old questions. So maybe we'll get one new question today. One more could be asked for, right? One new question, please.
I'd like to mark this as the defendant's next in order.
I believe that's 1029.
29.
That's 1029. That's the number of that exhibit.
Place at 1029 on this two-page report, Your Honor, that's labeled Los Angeles Police Department Scientific Investigation Division, Latent Print Section. 1029?
1029.
I'd like to place this two-page report before you, Detective Lang, and ask you to take a minute and take a look at that, first of all.
Okay,
Have you had occasion to see that report before today?
yes.
And where have you seen that report?
One was forwarded to me.
And when did you receive it?
Gosh, it's been some time back. I don't recall. This particular one was probably a couple weeks ago.
All right, and with regard to that report, is that a report of the findings of the print technicians who dusted the areas you've described for the court and jury at the Bundy location?
To date, yes.
And with connection with that report, who is the print technician who did this work?
Who did the comparative work
Yes, comparative work.
is Alvarado.
Alvardo.
Alvardo.
And so Alvardo, working under your direction, dusted these areas you've described for prints regarding Bundy.
No.
Okay, what-
Maybe I should clear that up. Alvardo did the comparison work in the lab. The
All right.
dusting at the scene was done by four different persons.
Who are they?
Braggs, Duke, Udeshi, and Claiborne.
How do you spell those?
Braggs, Braggs, Duke, Duke. Udeshi appears to be Udeshi. Claiborne, Claiborne.
As I understand it, then, these four individuals are like technicians. They're the ones who work at the field. They carry out your instructions, is that correct?
Yes,
They then take, after they make the collection of the latent prints, if any, they then take them downtown to the Scientific Investigation Division, is that correct?
yes.
And then a comparison is made by Alvardo, is that correct?
That's one of the things that, yes,
And then the report before you is a two-page report. It's from Alvardo, is that right?
that's correct.
And in the course of this, were you looking to determine whether or not Mr. Simpson's fingerprints were in any of these particular areas?
That's correct.
And what is the counsel? And the report you have a report as to whether or not Mr. Simpson's prints were in any of these locations, don't you?
Yes.
Maybe got a moment. Trying to avoid a sidebar.
At least with sidebars, I knew where to go. I knew when to fast forward it to. Oh, they're at a sidebar.
Yes, good work with this. All right, Mr.
Thank you,
Cochran.
Ed. I want to ask you a few other questions about this particular document. Um, This, you asked to have a number of individuals compared, I presume, to see if you could locate their prints inside Bundy. Is that correct?
Term we use is eliminated.
Eliminated?
Yes.
You sought to eliminate certain individuals. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us what subjects, if any, you sought to eliminate as having their prints inside the location?
All LAPD personnel at the scene, all civilian personnel at the scene, family members, any friends that we find may have visited the scene at one time or another. Just basically all persons who have had access to that scene.
Well, let's, okay, you've given us some names. Was Mr. Simpson one of the people you sought to see if you eliminate?
That's correct.
All right. Was Mr. Cowlings one of the people you sought to see if he was eliminated?
Yes.
Was Mr. Marcus Allen one of the people you sought to see if he was eliminated?
I don't believe so. I don't have any record of that.
And in making a determination of whether or not anybody else you can recall was, well, let me ask you this question. Was Faye Resnick a person that you sought to eliminate?
Yes.
What about Robin Greer?
I don't recall if we ran Robin Greer's prints or even had her prints.
What about Cora Fishman?
He's just making names up.
We did not get Cora Fishman's prints.
Anyone else that you can recall that you sought to eliminate as having prints at the Bundy Street location in the analysis that was done? It's depicted on
There were
29.
There's a list of names, several names on a list. I don't have that in front of me.
Can you get that pretty readily for us?
I can check here. See
See
if
if
I
you
have
can
it.
get that without too much delay.
Did I miss the lunch break? Because he has a whole bunch of things he's supposed to look for during the lunch break. Can't you just add this to the list? He doesn't need to eat.
By the way, while you're doing that, may I ask you a question or two?
Certainly.
What are you referring to there?
This is my murder book.
Is that your homicide book?
Yes, that's one of them.
Okay. And so how many books do you have? Homicide books do you have?
In this case,
Yes.
My light does that same thing. It just leans over whatever it wants to. If a cat walks by, I like tense up because I think my light's going to fall down.
4 or 5.
And so
Just
over
whether,
lunch hour, if we ask you to look for something, you're going to look in your homicide books to try and find it?
if I think it's in here.
All right. And those are originals, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
This list may be with, was compiled by the Layton Print Unit, and that's perhaps the ones who still have it. This is an ongoing process where they're adding to that every time we come up with another name. So I am not certain that I would even have that ongoing list.
All right. Would it be easier for you if we put that on the list for lunchtime? You took a look at lunchtime?
Wouldn't be easier, but I'll do it. Oh,
Well,
here it is here. I'm sorry, I do have it.
it's one less thing to do. Can I look at that with you?
Yes, this is appears to be a partial list. Persons run and eliminated. The current list, the ongoing list would be maintained by the print unit, and I don't believe all the names would be on there.
All right. Now, this list that you have here, do you mind if we mark this?
How about if we have a photocopy made of it?
Please.
Let the
I guess you
detective.
do mind, huh? Okay, so we'll get the clerk to make a copy on that. Pass it. While we're waiting to do that, is that a complete list of everybody, including Mr. Simpson?
Once again, I don't believe it is. I think there's an ongoing list maintained by the print unit.
All right, but at the lunchtime, can you also check to see if
If only he would have said that before.
you have any other lists? Is that the only one you have at this point?
I believe it's the only one, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, but so we're clear, what you're trying to do here is to eliminate certain individuals' fingerprints, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's an actual list of the individuals who have been eliminated at this point that comes out of your homicide book, is that right?
The list would be those who are eliminated and the ones who are made on prints.
All right, and so that we're clear, you did in fact make some individuals on the prints, is that correct?
Yes.
In fact, you made some police officers, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor. He didn't make
Sustained.
anybody.
Sustained.
Well, the,
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel.
Sustained.
well, I haven't asked the question yet.
Next
The,
question. Next question.
you objected to the? Okay, let me see if I can state a question. There are individuals who were not eliminated, and you have the names of those individuals, is that correct?
Yes.
And on that list of people who were not eliminated, would there be some friends of Mr. Cole Brown Simpson?
Yes.
And would there be police officers on that list also?
One police officer.
Would he be a detective?
Your Honor, same objection.
Sustained.
Is
List
this
is,
correct? That was involved, Principal.
no, sustained, Counsel.
May I mark these as, we have a copy, we'll give him the original back. May I mark this as 1030, Your Honor?
Yes.
It's a two-page document.
I think that's mine. Is that my original?
Maybe, that's yours. I thought I had a copy, but okay.
You may.
You have your copy back?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I'll mark this two-page as 1030.
All right, 10:30, but Mr. Cochran, this is not the person who did the comparison.
I understand, Your
All right,
Honor. Now,
thank
with
you.
regard to 1030, so we make it clear for the record, Your Honor, what this is. Tell us what 1030 is.
1030 is a partial list entitled Homicide Worksheet of police personnel whose prints were compared to print lifts made at the Bundy location.
All right. And who is the person who can come in here and tell us what the findings were? Who was eliminated? And who you found prints of? Who's that person?
Well, there are probably several, depending on when the information came in. Alvarado, I believe, would be one of them. Some of this work is done on day watch, and some may be done on night watch. I think the best way to tell would be to contact the print supervisor for that information.
The print supervisor?
Yes, the supervisor of that unit.
Do you, I was asking you some questions yesterday and this morning with regard to lividity being present on First Nicole Brown Simpson. And you remember you indicated that you didn't recall any. Remember that?
I don't recall any marked lividity.
And by the way, with regard to Mr. Goldman, do you recall any lividity on his body?
He was clothed. I wouldn't have observed any.
Well, in order to take the liver temperature, didn't they have to raise up his clothing? The scene there?
To that area, yes.
You see any lividity then?
I don't recall seeing anything that stood out to me.
Would it refresh your recollection to see a document with regard to that in the coroner's office?
Certainly may.
Okay, I'd like to mark as the next exhibit 1030, is it?
10:31.
1030. It's a two-page document.
10:31.
1031. It's a two-page document, page 2 and 3, and I'd like to show it to counsel.
All right. With the court reporter, please. You may.
I want to show you a document that's been marked as Defendant's 1031. It's a two-page document. And I want to ask you,
Marcia lost.
the question of validity, whether or not you'll read the two paragraphs. By the way, the two decedents were given different coroner's numbers, were they not?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to read two separate paragraphs, if you would.
This and
This one and this one.
Okay.
And I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you read those? Read both paragraphs now? Sorry,
Yes.
take your time.
Yes.
And does the review of this particular document, investigator's report, refresh your recollection as to whether or not there was lividity present and fixed in either one of these bodies?
No.
Doesn't refresh your recollection at all?
No.
All right. You were present when the autopsies were done on both individuals?
Yes.
And as you think back about your being present at that time, does that in any way refresh your recollection of whether you saw lividity on either of these bodies?
No, those observations would be made prior to the autopsy and probably my arrival. I don't recall making those observations.
All right. It doesn't refresh your recollection.
Not at all.
All right. Now, you received a call to respond to this homicide, as I understand it, sometime in the early morning hours of June 13th, 1994. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who called you at that time, if you recall?
I believe it was a detective from detective headquarters, on-duty detective.
And do you remember what time it was that you received this call?
Approximately 3 a.m.
And I presume you were at home in bed at that point.
Yes.
And then you drove from your home in Simi Valley down to the location, is that right?
Yes.
And how long did it take you to get from Simi Valley to the location at Brentwood?
Perhaps 50 minutes, an hour. I don't know.
You arrived at the location at about 4:25 in the morning?
Yes.
And when you got there, Van Adder was already there, isn't that correct?
Yes.
We didn't get there
And
yet.
two of you had worked together for about
not
4
gonna like
years
it,
prior
though.
to this particular time.
That's correct.
You became aware that you were taking this case over from two other detectives, is that correct?
Yes.
You'd never worked before with
You've been awake for a long time.
Mark Phillips or
You need to
Furman,
fall
is that correct?
asleep.
Mark Furman or Ron Phillips.
Or Ron Phillips. You had not worked before with him.
That's correct.
And once you arrived at the scene, you described for us how you were briefed and taken around the scene, primarily by Phillips, is that correct?
Yes.
And in the course of that, you all had some conversations. When I say you all, I mean that you and Van Adder and Phillips and Furman had some conversation about what you had here, what kind of homicides these were and that sort of thing. Isn't that right?
Yes.
It's true, is it not, sir, that upon arrival at the crime scene, you were met by Detective 3 Ron Phillips, West Los Angeles Division Homicide Coordinator. That's correct, is it not?
He's one of the people, yes.
That Phillips stated to you that victim Brown was the ex-wife of OJ Simpson, the well-known athlete/actor, right?
I don't believe he stated that verbatim. I believe there was information that one of the victims appeared to be Mr. Simpson's ex-wife.
Well, maybe I can approach, and I'll show you 1021, Counselor. You see it. This is Defendant's 1021. I want to place this before you. That's what I want to ask you, and I can show you if you'd like. This is a report prepared by you and Van Adder. It's a continuous report in the homicide book, prepared under your direction and that of Detective Van Adder. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at it together. Does that report indicate that Phillips stated that victim Brown was the ex-wife of OJ Simpson, comma, the well-known athlete actor?
Yes, it does.
Did it say additionally, Phillips stated that Mr. Simpson and victim one had been embroiled in previous domestic violence situations, comma, one of these resulting in the arrest of Mr. Simpson? Did the report say that?
Yes, it does.
Phillips told you that, didn't he?
Not at the particular time of my arrival, but he did prior to going to the Rockingham location.
All right. Well, he told you, and the report says upon arrival at the crime scene, you were met by Detective 3 Phillips, right?
That was meant to be the end of that thought, met by Detective Phillips.
Okay.
It was later on that he made that statement.
But he told you this before you went over to Rockingham, isn't that correct?
Yes,
And then it goes on to say Mr. Simpson resided at 360 North Rockingham Place in Brentwood, approximately 2 miles from the crime scene. Is that what it says?
that's what it says.
Now you wrote this, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And as an experienced police officer in writing this, you strive to be as accurate as possible, isn't that correct?
Yes,
That's what you did in this case, right?
that's correct.
And so before you went over to Rockingham, Phillips had told you already that Simpson had been embroiled in this previous domestic violence situation resulting in O.J. Simpson's arrest, right?
That was a general statement,
I'm asking, did he tell you that?
not in that form, no.
Who told you about an incident that he had dealt with or had responded to at the Rockingham incident back in 1985, did you not?
No. Furman told Phillips about an incident that he had responded to, and Phillips told me.
All right, so you didn't talk to Furman, but you talked to Phillips, who talked to Furman, right?
That was my understanding.
All right,
That's
and
what
Can
was
you
relayed
chart
to me
this
by
on a
Phillips.
And then
whiteboard
Phillips then
for me,
told you, right?
please?
Correct.
All right. So you arrive at the scene at 4:25, and you have 2 dead bodies, right?
That's correct.
And you're given this walkthrough by Phillips, is that correct?
That's
That you
correct.
described. And was it after the walkthrough that Phillips told you about this situation of Mr. Simpson having been embroiled in a previous domestic violence situation with his wife or ex-wife? Or during the walkthrough? When
No,
was
it was just after that he told me that Furman had responded years before to a radio call at that location.
All right, my question is, when was that? Was it just after what?
That was just after the walkthrough.
Just after the walkthrough.
Around that time, yes.
And was Van Adder present also at that point?
He was nearby.
All right.
I don't recall exactly where.
Do you know whether or not he heard at that point?
Whether he heard that
The
conversation?
conversation with Phillips, sir.
He may have.
Now, you said something earlier with regard to the fact that initially, was Van Adder taking a more active role in this investigation than he is now?
I don't think I understand that.
All right, let me say it this way. You said, I think, early in response to one of my questions that you're co-lead investigators, is that correct?
Yes.
I thought you said something about something had turned around or something had changed. Did you indicate that earlier today?
I believe I was alluding to the fact that after 5 days, this case was filed with the district attorney's office, and
Wait a minute, let me stop you there. This case was filed within the first 5 days?
no, I believe I stated after the first 5 days.
Well, was it filed on June 17th, 1994?
I believe that was the date, yes.
And these killings had occurred on June 12th in the late evening hours, is that correct?
Yes,
So within 5 days, by that Friday, is it 17th Friday?
correct.
All right. Between the 12th and the 17th, were you co-lead investigators during that time?
Yes,
Between the 17th and today, 2/22/95, you still co-lead investigators?
certainly.
Same basic roles.
Yes.
All right. Now, so you have this conversation wherein Phillips tells you about this domestic violence situation. And you become aware also that Commander Bushy has told...
I bet those two are a hoot when they're together. him and his partner.
Phillips to give personal notification to OJ Simpson. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, there was nothing that would prohibit you as the investigator now, you and your partner as the co-lead investigators, from giving that notification to Mr. Simpson. Isn't that correct? You could have done it also, couldn't you?
I could have.
Just like you gave the notification to the real next of kin, Mr. Lewis Brown. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
But it's your testimony that after hearing this from Phillips, all four of you...
Objection, I'm sorry. Objection to the real next of
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
kin. Objection to the question that's raised, real next of kin.
Overruled.
May I try to restate my... She wouldn't object to this question, so let me restate it. So is it your testimony... We'll strike that. You were aware, were you not, that Van Adder had worked West Los Angeles? You were aware of that sometime in the past?
Some 20 years prior, yes.
And were you aware that he's testified he knew the area in West Los Angeles and knew how to get to O.J. Simpson's house in Rockingham?
He stated to me that night that he didn't know the way.
All right, now, my question to you is, are you aware whether or not he's testified before that he knew the area of West Los Angeles, having worked... Let me finish the question. May I ask...
Sustain.
All right. Did you watch your partner testify at the preliminary hearing in this case?
I did not. I was banned from the courtroom.
Well, they have television?
I was sent into the hall and not allowed to watch.
Well, you weren't here all the time, but you watched, right?
At the preliminary hearing, I was excluded while my partner testified, and he was excluded while I testified.
So you didn't hear what he said?
That's correct.
Did you read his testimony in the preliminary hearing transcript?
No.
All right. Have you talked to him about it, his testimony?
No, I stand objections.
I can ask, he can answer that yes or no.
Overruled.
I don't recall discussing specifics like that. The only conversation I had regarding your question with Van Adder was that evening.
Okay. All right. At any rate, you were aware he'd worked West Los Angeles at some point in the past. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you and Van Adder were in one car. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who was driving that car?
Van Adder?
All right. And is it your testimony that your purpose, after hearing this from Phillips, was to go over and just establish some rapport with Mr. Simpson so you get to know him, so you could cooperate as this investigation proceeded? Is that your testimony is?
That's one of the reasons, yes.
All right. Was one of your reasons you went over there because you thought he was a suspect in this case?
No, not at that time.
Well, let's see now. If when you got inside the Rockingham residence, if Cato Kalin was a potential suspect and you looked at his shoes, O.J. Simpson wasn't a suspect?
I'm not saying that Cato Kalin was a potential suspect. I believe Furman requested to look at his shoes.
Well, let me ask you this. You told us yesterday that Furman looked at his shoes. Didn't you see Furman give Cato Kalin a nystagmus test? Did you see him looking in his eyes to determine whether or not he was under the influence of anything at some point? Were you aware of that?
He may have done that. I wasn't in the room. I was out on the walkway. He may have.
But you've read reports, have you not, about that?
I don't recall.
Well, he's the investigating officer, Your Honor. You asked him to
No.
read reports.
Sustain. Sustain.
All right. Now, were you aware that Furman looked through this pile of clothes that were in Cato Kalin's room?
He may have. I don't have a specific recollection. I didn't see him look through any clothes.
Now, with regard to your going to this location, you described for us you're going over there. Your purpose then was to establish this rapport with Mr. Simpson, right? Among other purposes.
That's one reason, yes.
All right. And the other two detectives, Furman and Phillips, were going to go over there to for Phillips to give notification. Is that correct? Isn't that right?
Well, if Mr. Simpson were at home, myself or Detective Van Adder would have probably actually given the notification.
Well, then why then would you need Furman and Phillips to go over there?
Because it was my intent to leave both detectives with Mr. Simpson while we returned to the crime scene to complete our investigation.
And was that to establish more rapport with him and kind of get his cooperation? Is that what you're going to do?
As far as my contact,
Yes.
one of the reasons was to get him to meet us, to establish some rapport, and to get some type of an initial statement, yes.
All right. And were you going to question him about these previous domestic violence situations that Furman had told Phillips about, who then told you about it?
No, certainly not at that time.
All right, you weren't going to talk about that.
That would be the last thing I would have brought up at
All
that
right.
time.
But what you were going to do was just try to establish this rapport and leave these detectives there to try to assist Mr. Simpson, right?
That was in the back of my mind, yes.
All right. So you've described for us that you went over there and how you ultimately gained entrance. In other words, you had Furman climb over that wall. Isn't that correct?
Yes,
And you went inside, and you've described for us how you ultimately ended up at Cato Kalin's residence, right?
yes.
And yesterday, when asked by Ms. Clark, you indicated that Cato Kalin did not tell you that Mr. Simpson had left for Chicago the night before. Isn't that correct? You so indicate?
I may have. I didn't recall that being put to him as a question, but yeah, I don't recall that being said.
Do you recall that Arnell Simpson said to you and Van Adder that her father was in Chicago, Illinois, after leaving the L.A. area late the night before? Do you recall that?
She may have after. Initially, she didn't say that, though.
Well, let me show you this report again that we were just talking about. I still have your copy here. Let's look down and look at Defendant's 1021. Look at the next to the last paragraph, and I want to ask you if you wrote this and if Arnell Simpson said this to you. Detectives were also informed by Ms. Simpson that her father was in Chicago, Illinois, after leaving the L.A. area late the night before. Ms. Simpson further stated she had returned home at approximately 0100 hours, that's 1 o'clock, right?
1 a.m.
After attending the movies in Westwood. She tell you that?
That statement was made subsequent to other statements by Ms. Simpson. Yes,
Did she tell you that?
she did subsequent, yes.
Is your answer yes?
Yes.
Okay, now, with regard to Cato Kalin, you or your brother officer wrote a report of what Cato Kalin said that very morning when you all talked to him. Isn't that correct?
I don't recall writing any report.
You don't? Well, let me approach, and counsel, I'm referring now to Defendant 1024 for identification. I want to place before you a report dated 6/13/94, 6 o'clock hours, I presume in the morning. It revolves a Kalin.
Objection. Objection, I'd like to approach.
This is one of the exhibits already marked.
John's report.
I'm good. Doesn't matter, Mr. Porter. I want to ask him about this report here.
All right, at this point, the objection is premature. Proceed.
This report, I want to show you this report here. See Kalin, Brian Gerard Kalin? See that?
Yes,
3959, right?
correct.
And this,
Counsel doesn't need to read it into the record. You can allow him
Just
to-
ask him the question if the
Okay.
person was present when the statement was taken, counsel.
with regard to this statement, I want you to read this statement to yourself. I want you to read it in total, and then I want to ask you a question or two about it. Mike.
I can't even think about what it might be that she doesn't want read in. I'm trying to, but I know the jury's trying to as well.
Okay,
You've read that report over?
yes,
All right, and you recognize this as a Los Angeles Police Department report of some kind?
it appears to be a partial statement.
And do you recognize the handwriting on this report?
I think it perhaps is Detective Van Adder's.
Now, you worked with him a long time. It looks his handwriting to you?
It appears to be Detective Van Adder's.
And you were present, were you not, when Van Adder spoke with Cato Kalin? Isn't that right? At least a part of the time?
No.
You were never present when Van Adder was talking to Cato Kalin?
No, Van Adder was in the rear at the bar area with Kalin, and I was with Arnell in the kitchen area.
Well, let me ask you this. Didn't Cato Kalin tell you?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm asking him specifically this question. Let me ask this.
Objection.
Sustain. It's your say.
What Cato Kalin told you?
See? Yes?
We need to, well, we'll do it over lunch hour.
But then it won't be a lunch hour.
Well, it's okay, Your Honor. His lunch hour is ruined already anyway, so we're going to ruin everybody's, except
The
the
fact that
jury's.
his is ruined doesn't mean mine has to be ruined.
Well, Judge, we all have to suffer together, Your Honor. It's the whole thing.
All right, Mr.
Okay, just because I'm old, I'm going to say that I can't imagine Karen Reed being bigger than the OJ trial. The OJ trial was, a year long, and back then we didn't have the internet. Okay, we kind of had, we had a little bit of the internet, but we didn't have like global. We weren't connected globally to everything like we are now, like with the Karen Reed trial. So people didn't have other options of what to watch. Not as many. So like today, everybody is not to their television set to watch the Karen Reed trial. Back then, everybody was glued to watch the OJ Simpson trial because really we didn't have what we have now. We didn't have other options. So I don't know. This was the trial of the century. I don't know. It would be nice if there was another, humongous trial. I have not seen the Karen Reed trial yet. I haven't. Everybody else covered it, so I didn't think I need to. But yeah, I worked and I wasn't overly consumed with it, but I was consumed with zero of any other cases. I didn't care about trials at all. Plus, it was OJ Simpson. Yeah. Yep. See, people listened to it on the radio. People watched it on TV. Read about it in the newspaper. Nobody listens to the radio. Nobody reads the newspaper. Nobody watches TV. It's just a different world. I guess now, though, Karen Reed is probably bigger globally because more people can access it than before. I don't know. Could be. Now that I think about it.
Cochran, we're about 6 minutes still. Do you want to excuse the jury at this point and argue the point?
No, I'd like to proceed a little bit longer.
All right.
This won't take long, Your Honor.
Thank you.
This part of it. Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Now, what I want to ask you is, you had a conversation with Cato Kalin, didn't you? Are you
I don't
present
believe
during
I
a
did.
conversation?
I don't believe I did.
Were you present during a conversation with Cato Kalin?
No, I was outside the room when Furman was inside, and I recall overhearing some things before proceeding down to Arnell Simpson's room.
Well, if you were looking for O.J. Simpson to establish this rapport and cooperation with him, and you were the co-lead investigator, wouldn't it have been important to talk to Arnell Simpson and Cato Kalin there to find out when they last saw O.J. Simpson?
Be important to talk to anyone there.
All right. Well, don't you think it was important for you to ask Cato Kalin, when is the last time you saw O.J. Simpson? You want to ask that
Initially,
question?
I would probably say no because we didn't know who he was, and I didn't talk to him in any event.
I see, but you weren't, as an investigating officer, you weren't interested at all in what he might be able to tell you about when you last saw him?
It's certainly not a matter of me not being interested. Of course I'd be interested.
All right, but you never asked him that question, did you?
I didn't speak with the man.
All right, but you read Van Adder's statement that was taken by 6 o'clock that morning, right?
Well, objection, that assumes facts not known.
I'm
Sustained.
asking, have you read Van Adder's
Partial
statement?
statement. It states the testimony is a partial
Overruled.
statement.
That part's overruled. I've sustained the objection there.
All right. Did you read Van Adder's statement?
I'm aware of that partial statement, and I did not read it that morning, no.
All right. He never told you about what Kalin had told him?
Objection irrelevant.
Well, you can say yes or no
Say
to
yes
that.
or no?
I don't believe he got into any detail at all.
All right. So then, you didn't talk to Kalin, but you then went down and talked to Arnell Simpson, right?
With Phillips, that's correct.
Right. And at some point, because we saw it in your own statement, she told you her dad was in Chicago. Now,
If I do, I'm not playing the entire trial because I can't sit through another with you guys. I can't sit through another same question over and over and over and over and over again. So what I'll do is watch the trial and clip the important parts and leave the rest in the editor's bin.
all right?
Yes.
Now, when you were searching around that house and going all through the house, did you ever go upstairs and look in Mr. Simpson's bedroom for him if you were so interested in finding him?
No, because Ms.
Oh, no,
Simpson,
you answer that, can you answer yes or no, please?
I never went upstairs.
All right, and so when you were trying to find out whether O.J. Simpson was on the premises or not, you never went upstairs to his bedroom or looked in the upstairs part of that house, right?
That's correct.
And you described for us yesterday how, pursuant to the LAPD policy, you're supposed to give, where at all possible, personal knowledge of the death to the next of kin. Isn't that correct?
Personal
Pursuant to your
knowledge
manual?
or notification?
Yes,
Personal
notification.
notification,
All right.
yes.
And in the situation, so that we're clear, in the situation where you're divorced from someone, who is the next of kin?
Well, it wouldn't be the person you were divorced from.
Right, it would
The
be
next
their,
of kin could be anyone.
could be maybe their parents. Would that be
It
perhaps?
could be anyone who's the next of kin.
All right, and you ascertained at some point, in fact, you knew when you were talking to Phillips that Mr. Simpson was divorced from Mrs. Nicole Brown Simpson, didn't you? You knew that, didn't you?
I believe he said either divorced or separated. I don't believe the distinction was made at that time.
And do you know if whether or not Commander Bushy knew that when he insisted on giving O.J. Simpson this personal knowledge, personal notice?
I have no idea.
But when you got on the phone and you called Mr. Lewis Brown's house, you didn't give any personal notice at that point, did you?
Personal knowledge?
Yes, personal notice.
As to what?
Just the death of Nicole Brown
Thank
Simpson.
you.
That wasn't personal notice, was it?
That was not in person, that's correct.
You could have contacted an Orange County Sheriff's Department, or whatever the local police department was, had one of those officers go over to that house in person and make notification. Couldn't you have done that?
I could have. It was a judgment call, and I didn't.
All right, and you didn't do that, right?
That's correct.
All right. And with regard to the conversation with Mr. Simpson, that conversation was conducted over on a phone call with Phillips. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it was during that conversation that you decided to tell Arnell what had taken place. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
And you described for us yesterday that she became very, very upset. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you said it was a period of excitement for everyone. Isn't that correct?
Everyone?
A time for excitement for everybody around the house. Weren't you somewhat excited?
I don't recall being excited, no.
All right. Who was excited?
Arnell Simpson.
She's the only one who's excited?
I can't imagine him excited.
I don't recall anyone else being excited.
Did you see Phillips's testimony where he said it was a period of excitement? Did Phillips seem excited to you also?
No.
So only Arnell was excited inside the house there.
In my opinion, yes.
And did you call the Brown family directly after the conversation was made to Mr. Simpson?
I don't recall the timing. I'd have to look at the phone bills. It was around that time.
All right, and you can look at some phone bills for us maybe over the lunch hour. Now, at some point yesterday, you told us you left the Rockingham location because you had to go downtown somewhere. Remember that?
No, I believe it was to go back to the Bundy location.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I know you went to Bundy, but at some point you left Bundy, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
to go
okay,
downtown,
Bundy.
right?
That's correct.
And were you aware that Mr. Simpson had returned to town?
Yes.
And you went downtown to see Mr. Simpson, didn't you?
Yes.
Down at Parker Center here in Los Angeles, right?
That's correct.
And you and Van Adder went down to talk to Mr. Simpson, isn't that right?
That's correct.
You found him to be very, very cooperative, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor.
I can answer that
Beyond
question.
scope. This
Can
is
make it my own
counsel
witness.
testifying, so it's backed on evidence.
She's speaking objection, Your Honor.
No, those are
Make-
statements of 3 legal causes. It's sustained at this point.
I'm making my own witness, Your Honor. I can answer
Well,
this
it's
question.
sustained at this point.
Okay.
It's 12 noon straight up.
All right, let me ask one last question. You went downtown and you saw O.J. Simpson at Parker Center, right?
Yes.
And you found him to be cooperative with you at the time you saw him at Parker Center.
Objection,
Isn't
Your
that correct?
Honor, it's all beyond scope.
Well, let me ask this question. You took a
Oh.
statement. Okay, well, thank you, Your Honor. What-
You can just say he took a statement from him.
Okay,
That's
well,
where
let
we're
me,
gonna end- That's where we're
let
going
me
to
go
end
back to the other question. You took a statement from him, right?
Yes.
All right, that's where
That's a
we're
good
ending.
point. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the noon hour. Please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you. Don't perform any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. We'll see you back here at 1:30.
Everything the judge just told
Alright,
y'all
let's
not to do, y'all have been doing in chat. Oh, we got opinions, Judge.
All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. Counsel, is there anything else we need to take up before we invite the jurors to rejoin us?
No, Your Honor, this afternoon, probably the break, we want to show some more video to, additional videos we'd like to show, according to the counsel. We have.
All right. Mr. Darden, Ms. Clark? We ready?
I'm sorry, I can't, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
We ready?
Oh, yes.
All right, let's have the jurors,
Is there
please.
something else the council wanted to show us?
No, they indicated, Mr. Cochran indicated that at the break, he had some additional video.
Why not show us now?
All right,
Well, we
let's have the jurors,
see,
please.
as we have done courtesy to counsel throughout this trial, I show it to counsel before I show it to the witness. Since we're going to, since you know what you're going to show the witness,
You weren't listening. We're not showing the witness. Relax, we would.
but you obviously are going to, why not do it now? Why not we look at it now?
Let's have the jurors, please.
I think they should watch it now because they just gave that poor detective 3 weeks worth of work to do over our lunch break. Give him more time.
Let's have the jurors, please.
Come on, jurors, hurry up.
Detective Tom Lang is still on the witness stand. Good afternoon, Detective. You're reminded you're still under oath. Mr. Cochran, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor, and good afternoon, Mr. Jury and Detective Lang. Did you have a pleasant lunch?
Not really.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Were you able to get a list of items that were you able to refer to them over the lunch hour, sir?
Yes.
And may I approach with regard to the list? And maybe, Your Honor, if we can have a moment, take some time, you can tell me those items that you're able to find or whatever.
Sure, Ms. Clark, do you want to approach? Mr. Cochran.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Lang, over the lunch hour, were able to review any of your reports and determine, first of all, when it was that you received some communication from Mr. Mahaney, who is a criminalist in the coroner's office, with regard to their failure to collect the blood drops or spatters on Nicole Simpson's back.
So my office was faxed Mr. Mahaney's report on June 23rd, 1994.
Is that June 21st?
Might be 21, yes.
June 21st.
June 21, yes.
And thereafter, did you do something after that?
Yes, I telephonically spoke with Mr. Mahaney,
And that was
approximately 2 to 3 weeks after, and that's only a guess.
And it was in that conversation when you discussed whether or not the coroner's office had removed or examined or preserved these blood spots on the back. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, in that connection, when we've seen pictures of how Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's body was kind of on her side in a fetal position, and when the coroner's representatives, Ratcliffe, and what was the gentleman's name who came out?
There was a driver. It's in the log. I
Was it
don't,
Jacopo?
Possibly.
Jacopo.
possibly something like that.
When they came out, you were standing there when her body was placed on this sheet and the plastic. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you recall that they turned her body over on the back, so she's laying on her back. Isn't that correct?
I believe they may have, yes.
And so did you tell them, be careful, don't put the body on the back because you're going to smear that blood?
I pointed that out to the criminalist, and I don't recall specifically saying that. I don't believe it was in a position to be smeared. It was caked and dried.
Well, let me ask this. What criminalist did you point that out to?
The investigator, I misspoke, to the investigator who put the body on the...
All right. So that we're clear, before her body was removed from that scene, her body was placed on its back. Isn't that correct?
It was on the back so much, there was an attempt to straighten the body out because of the state of rigor mortis.
Right.
So I don't recall the body being perfectly supine.
All right, but as opposed to being on its face, it was on the back, though. Is that correct?
More or less, yes.
Okay, sir. And the person that you pointed out to be careful not to smear the blood on the back would have been Ratcliffe, the coroner's investigator?
Yes,
What are you
that's the
talking-
original person who I discussed that with.
Okay. And we'd ask you if you could check your notes or your homicide books and find out about this July 3rd, 1995, strike that, July 3rd, 1994, visit to Bundy when you have testified the blood spots on the rear gate were collected. You recall that?
Yes.
And did you have occasion over the lunch hour to look at any kind of chronological entry in the log regarding that?
Yes.
And did your review of that log indicate that you were the first one at the scene other than a police officer who may have gotten there before you did?
That's my recollection, yes.
And that police officer would have been Detective Payne?
Yes.
By the way, Detective Payne is the officer who has been running down leads, if any, regarding other suspects. Is that correct in this case?
No, he's been doing some of that, but mostly coordinating that type of thing.
Coordinating what type of thing?
Running down leads, running down so-called clues as they come in.
Okay, the clues. And his name is Payne. Is that P-A-Y-N-E?
That's correct.
And is he assigned to West Los Angeles?
No, he's assigned to Robbery Homicide Division.
So he's one of your people in the robbery homicide downtown?
That's correct.
And is that a chore or task that you assigned him early on in this case?
It was done by my lieutenant at the time.
And that's Lieutenant Rogers?
That's correct.
Okay. At any rate, so Detective Payne may have been at the scene. Would you have been the second police officer there?
More than likely.
And do you have a record and indicate what time you actually arrived, approximately?
Yes.
By what time did you arrive?
At 9:45 a.m.
On July 3rd, is that correct?
Yes.
And then after you arrived, it was sometime after you arrived that Ms. Clark arrived, is that correct?
Yes.
And who arrived first as between Ms. Clark and Mr. Hodgman, if you recall?
What's the possible relevance of this?
There may be, Your Honor. There may be. I'll be very brief on this.
If there's only maybe, then we ought to move on.
Yeah, we'll move on. I just want to find out if I can. Did you recall, they didn't come together, did they?
I don't believe so.
All right. And with regard to the two of them, who arrived first?
I don't recall.
All right. And then was after they arrived, you know the time they arrived?
It had to be right around 10 a.m. shortly thereafter.
All right.
I believe 10 a.m. was the meeting time.
And do you recall whether or not Mr. Fung, the criminalist, was summoned there at some time that morning?
Yes.
And do you know what time he arrived?
No, it had to be obviously after 10.
You have no idea what time he arrived?
No.
And was a photographer summoned also?
Yes.
And the picture which I showed you earlier, was that taken at some time later that day on July 3rd?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Now, when we broke... Sure, Counsel. Let me, Counsel's correct, Your Honor. The picture, so we'll show it again, is 10007, defense 10007, Your Honor. That picture or photograph here was taken sometime later that day of July 3rd, 1994, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when you arrived at the scene on July 3rd, I believe you told us that up to that point, you had not seen any property reports from, or any reports from the criminalist, Mr. Fung, or from Ms. Mazzola?
That's my recollection.
All right. And then did you visually look at the rear gate of the Bundy location?
Yes, I
That
walked. Sorry?
Did you visually look at that
Yes,
gate?
I walked in through that gate.
All right. And then thereafter, or after you had your meeting there, that's when Fung was actually called to the scene, is that correct?
Yes.
And you have no knowledge of who may or may not have been at that location between the dates of June 13th and July 3rd, 1994, do you?
Who would have been at the location?
There's no log indicating who may have passed by there or come at that location, do you?
Well, I have the my entries only. I don't know if someone else has a log there.
All right. You have no log of people who were at that scene during that period of time?
Oh, on the 3rd?
Yeah, no. Between June 13th and July 3rd.
Objection, Vegas location, what's scene here?
Oh, well, we're talking about Bundy.
Talking about Bundy.
The very Bundy.
875 South Bundy.
Front, back?
Your Honor, speaking objection. Could you please answer?
There are several logs in the book, and I know that I had been to that location prior. I don't know.
What I'm asking you, sir, is there was no police who maintained a perimeter for the 3-week period of time after you took the yellow tape down. Is that
The
correct?
entire time. Okay, I misunderstood your question. No, there wasn't.
Okay, that's all I was asking you, sir. Now, when we broke for lunch, we were just asking you about the fact that you had left the Bundy scene at some time around noon, was it, on June 13th, 1994?
I believe it was approximately 12:15, yes.
All right, did you log out at that point, if you recall?
I believe I did.
And did you receive a telephone call or something that caused you to leave the location?
Yes.
Who called you?
The station from the division, one of the secretaries?
Okay, and you had a brief conversation with her?
Yes.
And you had left, and you left about 12:15, is that correct?
Yes.
If I might have put you again, Your Honor.
Yes.
The log indicates, I'd like to place before you the log, which is now Defendant's 1006. The log indicates that, let's see, you arrived about 4:25?
Objection. Witness can refresh his memory constantly.
I'm not trying to push you back like
Can the
this.
witness be allowed to
Well, what's the
There's a
question?
proper way to do this, Your Honor.
What's
You
the,
speaking objections, Your Honor?
what's the question?
The question is, did you arrive at the scene at about 4:25 in the morning?
Yes.
All right. And you left to go downtown to Parker Center at about 12:15.
That's correct.
Now, does the log reflect the time that you left Bundy to go over to Rockingham, and then the time that you came back from Rockingham to Bundy?
No, I checked out with my lieutenant at the scene.
All right, well, now you can look at the log. Did you indicate that? Is that indicated on the log that you left at all?
That wouldn't be indicated on there, no.
So the log indicates what?
When I first arrived at the location and when I left the location for the day.
All right, does not show the Rockingham sojourn, right?
No, again, that would have been my lieutenant who I checked out with.
Okay. Now, so when you went downtown, were you accompanied by anyone when you went downtown at 12:15?
No, I believe I was alone.
Okay, did you go anyplace else after you left Bundy before heading downtown?
I don't believe so.
You didn't stop by Rockingham at all?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. How long did it take you to get downtown, if you recall?
Perhaps 30, 40 minutes, I don't recall.
All right. At any rate, you went downtown to Parker Center, and that's when you found Mr. Simpson to be cooperative, right?
Yes?
Can you tell us how long you were in Mr. Simpson's presence during that time?
Approximately 3 hours, perhaps a little more.
And of that 3-hour period of time, the time you actually spoke to him was how long?
Spoke to him off and on for much of the time. There was a formal interview process that took a little over 30 minutes.
And I'm talking about the formal interview portion.
Okay.
So about 33 minutes?
I believe it was, yes.
All right. And during the time that you were with Mr. Simpson and after the formal interview, did you take some blood from him?
I did not.
Well, I asked leave of court to make this my witness for that purpose, Your Honor, rather than recalling him.
All right, the objection will be sustained.
May we heard, Your Honor, with regard to that?
Thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. About what time did you finish with your contact with Mr. Simpson downtown on June 13th in the afternoon?
Approximately 4 p.m.
And about 4 p.m. in the afternoon?
Approximately, it may have been a little earlier.
Well, didn't you finish about 2:30?
With my contact,
Yes, seeing Mr. Simpson.
I thought I was with him for approximately 3 hours.
And just give us your best recollection then.
Well, my best recollection,
Yes,
Overall,
this. Yeah.
this is not beyond the scope because we're talking about the time that this detective spent on that day. I'm not allowing him to go into the content of what he did with the defendant. That's beyond the scope.
Thank you, Your
But
Honor.
as far as his activities where he was at certain times, that's within the scope.
So let's go back over.
I understand the distinction. All right, thank you.
You arrived downtown at Parker Center what time?
I believe it was approximately 1 p.m.
All right. And your best recollection now is how long were you there before you left Parker Center?
Approximately 3 hours.
All right. And when you arrived down there, did you meet your...
Not there, as long in the company of Mr. Simpson, I believe it was approximately 3 hours.
Okay. Was that all downtown?
Yes,
Okay. And so would that be at Parker Center?
that's correct.
And were you also in the company of your partner, Detective Van Adder?
For part of that time,
And you went some other place while you were downtown also?
within Parker Center,
In the same area?
within the building.
All right. And there came a time when you were concluded with Mr. Simpson for that day, is that correct?
Yes,
That was about 4 o'clock?
I believe it was.
Did Mr. Simpson then leave the building at that point?
Yes,
And during this 3-hour period of time, strike that. After he left the building about 4 o'clock, did you then leave the building shortly thereafter?
sometime after that, yes.
Okay, do you know what time it was you left the building?
I want to say approximately 4:30, perhaps.
About 4:30 p.m.?
Approximately.
Do you have any kind of log or any kind of notes which refresh your recollection regarding this, sir?
I wouldn't have made a recordation of when I left.
And you don't...
The guy across the street, I just left for a second. The guy across the street, who's a sweetheart, got some lumber delivered right now. And we have a small road, and there was a big truck. And they're trying to put the lumber on the yard, which makes it hard for cars to go by. All of my neighbors are Karens. Every single neighbor I have is a Karen. And they're out there swearing at him. Oh, I feel so bad for him. They were all out there swearing at him because he had to stop the truck to get the lumber off the truck. It's 7:30 in the morning. Ain't nobody driving down my road at 7:30 in the morning. I live at almost a dead end of a street. There's a tiny alley at the end. So nobody comes this way. Nobody. But all my Karens are out there yelling at him.
Don't have any time, any report indicating the exact times?
That it left the building?
Yeah, that you finished with Mr. Simpson and left the building?
I wouldn't have done that.
Okay. And when you left the building at about 4:30?
Again, that's an approximate time. I believe it was somewhere in there.
All right. And where'd you go at that point?
I went to 360 North Rockingham.
Went back out to Mr. Simpson's residence, is that correct?
Yes,
And how did you get out there?
I drove.
And were you driving by yourself at this point?
I believe I was.
And did you have some conversation with Detective Van Adder before you went back out to Rockingham?
Yes,
Did both of you then go back out to Rockingham?
yes.
And about what time was it that you arrived back at Rockingham, if you recall?
Approximately 5:15 p.m.
And when you got to Rockingham, was Mr. Simpson at that location?
I don't believe he was there at that time.
Do you recall a time that he came back to Rockingham that afternoon?
I recall him coming there. I don't recall the time.
You have no idea what the time was?
Well, it would have to be after 5:15 and probably before 6:30, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in that time frame?
I believe so.
Again, do you have any reports which would refresh your recollection regarding that time?
The time of his arrival?
Yeah, the time that he got back there, yes.
No.
All right, now you told us yesterday on direct examination that you recovered some Reebok shoes from Mr. Simpson's residence there. You recall that?
Yes,
And when you recovered these shoes, Mr. Simpson was there, right?
yes.
Do you have a report with regard to that that indicates the time of the recovery of these Reebok shoes?
I don't believe there's anything of the time, no.
All right, you have a report, but it doesn't tell the time?
There's a property report, but I don't believe there's a time on it.
All right. Now, these tennis shoes, where were they recovered from?
From the walk-in closet adjacent to the master bedroom?
That's upstairs in the bedroom on Rockingham?
That's correct.
Where, do you recall that all the shoes were like kind of lined up in some kind of symmetrical order, according to color and sort of thing? You recall that?
They were with several shoes, yes, on the floor.
All right, there were some tennis shoes on the floor?
There were tennis shoes also, yes.
And these shoes, based upon your investigation, were important to you, is that correct?
There was a possibility that they would be of some import, yes.
All right. So you asked Mr. Simpson at some point to point out the shoes he was wearing, as you said yesterday, is that correct? Night before?
If you could recall the shoes he was wearing, yes.
All right. And you went and then you picked up these Reebok shoes, right?
Yes.
Was Van Adder present when this took place?
I don't believe so.
Now, with regard to those shoes, did you take those shoes back downtown and book them at Parker Center?
I wouldn't have done that, no.
Pursuant to the Los Angeles Police Department manual, you could have taken the shoes and booked them at some other station, perhaps on your way home, could you not?
No, I could not have.
You could not do that?
Could not have done that.
What does the Los Angeles Police Department manual say about the booking of evidence as soon as possible after it's taken into an officer's possession?
Generally, it says that it shall be booked as soon as possible. That manual is a guide and to be interpreted as such to assist us to do our job in a uniform manner. It's not possible at all times to do exactly what the manual says.
All right, right now we're talking not the explanation, we're talking about the manual, okay? Now, this manual, are you, well, I'm asking, well,
Overruled at this point.
Thank
It's
you.
not a question. Rephrase the
okay, let
question,
me phrase the question.
please.
Thank you. Are we talking about section 510.10 of the manual?
I'm aware of the content, Counselor. I haven't memorized the section.
All right, well, let me read this to you and see if this refreshes your recollection.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustain. That's not the appropriate way. If you
All
want
right.
to show it to him.
Sure, Your Honor.
I returned that back to the chief's office after we borrowed it.
What counsel detective? It's not the manual.
All right.
Go to the section of the manual, and I want to show it to him.
Your Honor.
Yes.
If it's not the actual manual, we have a manual available, don't we? Why don't we pass this topic?
All right. I'll see if we can do the manual. The section of the manual we're talking about deals with booking of evidence and non-evidence generally, does it not?
I believe it may, yes.
And doesn't it indicate to you that an employee seizing or taking custody of evidence shall ensure it's properly booked?
Sustain.
Now, I can ask him about his recollection of what it says, Your Honor.
You can.
Doesn't the manual indicate that you shall book evidence seized without unnecessary delay? Isn't that what the manual says?
It states that, but that is in fact the
Can you
guide.
just answer? Is that what the manual says?
Wait. He's entitled to finish his question. Don't argue with witness.
Okay, I won't, Your Honor, but I'd like to be responsive to the court.
No,
please.
he is. He's answering the question.
All right. Can you
And I
proceed?
think we're all agreed, as a general policy, evidence should be booked as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you. I want him to say that, Your Honor, not you.
Well, he
That's
said that
okay.
already
All right.
twice.
All right. So now, in that regard, so you're aware of that on June 13th, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, with regard to the taking of these particular shoes, you did not book those shoes anyplace that night, did you?
That night, I couldn't have, no.
You took those shoes home to Simi Valley with you?
That's correct.
You put them in the back of the police car?
In the trunk.
Back of the trunk of the car?
They were
Did you
placed in a cardboard box that went into the trunk, yes.
did you examine them visually when you first took them from the
Yes.
closet? And then where'd you get this box that you put them in?
I had a box in the trunk of my vehicle.
All right, you took the shoes, and then you put them in the box, and then you took the box, put it in the trunk, I presume, and took it home, right?
That's correct.
Did you, on June 14th or sometime after that, book those shoes in the property evidence?
No.
When did you ever book the shoes?
No, I turned the shoes over to Greg Matheson, the criminalist, to be examined, and then he would turn them over and to be booked.
And when did you turn the shoes over to Greg Matheson?
I believe it was approximately 7:30 a.m. on the morning of the 14th of June, '94.
Do you have a report with you today that details this information you're just talking about?
There wouldn't be any report that details that, possibly a log entry, but there wouldn't be any report.
All right, do you have a log entry that tells us this?
I could look, I don't know.
Can you look?
Now this detective must be tired, and he's not showing it.
Yes, this is a log entry of June 14th at 7 a.m.
Can I approach you?
You may.
Again, what are we referring to, sir?
Referring to turning over the Reebok shoes that you're asking me about.
And the book we're referring to is your homicide manual?
It's the chronological record.
Well, does it say anything about shoes on here?
No, it says evidence.
Just says Ray evidence, right?
That's correct.
Doesn't say anything about any Reebok shoes, does it?
Doesn't say anything about Reebok shoes, but that was when I turned them over.
All right, do you show, let's look at this log while we're here. Does it it show on this log what time it was that you got back to the Rockingham residence?
Back to the Rockingham residence
Or got
From-
from Parker Center, do we have an indication of that?
on the 13th.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
And what time is it?
It's at 5:20 p.m. on the 13th.
All right, Detective Lang, is there a knob there, a knurled knob, the second one there? Yeah, is that what's the problem?
It's loose down in here. That may be better.
All right.
So your chronological record indicates that about 5:20 on June 13th, you came back with the search warrant at 360 North Rockingham?
I believe the warrant had already been served. I came to that location to assist in the service.
All right, and do you know how long you stayed at the location that day, at the Rockingham location?
Approximately 6:30, I guess, perhaps 6:45.
All right, and you have an independent recollection that, were we talking about evidence here on June 14th at 7 o'clock in the morning, that you recall turning these Reebok tennis shoes over to Matheson?
Yes, I do.
And you know what he did with them at that point? What Matheson did with the shoes?
Yes, I requested a phenol or presumptive tests on reddish stains that I observed on the shoes, and he performed that examination.
He did that on that date?
Yes,
And the shoes still booked in evidence now?
yes.
All right. And do you know the evidence number of those particular shoes?
Not offhand. That would be on the property report.
At the time you gave him those shoes, Matheson, on June 14th at about 7 o'clock in the morning, did you give him any other items of evidence at that point?
I don't believe so.
That's all you gave?
That's my recollection.
Now, with regard to other evidence in this particular case, did you recover at the Bundy scene some change that was in the rear area near the Jeep vehicle?
No.
Did you see some change back there?
Yes, I believe that was recovered by the criminalist.
And was the change ever booked into evidence?
I believe it was.
And who booked that evidence?
I believe it was criminalist fund.
Now, would the criminalist book that, or would that be booked under your direction as the investigator?
The criminalist would have tagged it, had it photographed, collected it, and booked it.
Now, you saw it, though, that night, is that correct?
Yes, it was pointed out to me when I first arrived
By whom?
by Detective Phillips.
And so that we have a word picture. Can you tell us where this was located?
The two coins were located in the rear driveway area near the Jeep Grand Cherokee that belonged to the victim.
All right, and Phillips had shown you this, had he?
He pointed them out, yes.
Okay, do you ever see any photographs of this, of these coins that were on the, in that rear walkway?
I have.
And did they appear to be over a tire track area? You recall that?
I don't recall that.
Just a second, Your Honor.
And that's a good part. I only got 7 minutes. I can record a little bit of court before I go to work, so I don't want to miss it. Guys, thank you so much for coming out today. I really, really, really appreciate it. We are on February 22nd, part 3. We're going to finish that tomorrow. So we're getting so much closer to March. Let's go. Let's go, Furman. Here we go. Thanks for coming out. I'll talk to you again real, real soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye.